Hello, welcome to our Bystander Training Safer Together with PACS, Personal and Community Safety. I'm really excited to be doing this one today because I have an amazing group of people here to help us with this. So if I could go through just real quick, people a little bit about yourself, your name, and your experience with martial arts. So my name is Jason. I've been doing martial arts, I've been teaching martial arts for over 40 years.
Hi, my name is Jen, and I've been practicing martial arts for 13 years.
My name is Susan, and I've been teaching martial arts for over 40 years also.
My name is Bill, and I've been also teaching martial arts for about 40 years.
My name is Matthew, and I've been teaching martial arts for about 10 years, but I've been doing it for about 19 years, so good chunk of time.
I'm Megan. I've been doing martial arts for about 12 years.
I'm Sherry. I've been doing martial arts about 16 years and teaching probably about 5 or 6.
I'm Rich, and I've been doing martial arts for over 30 years.
I'm Laura. I've been studying martial arts for 3 years, this time, lifetime on and off.
Thank you, Laura. So a couple things wanted to kind of get out of the way at the beginning. We're going to be discussing things together, so some general terms will be self-protection is that time all around an actual self-defense event. Self-defense or self-defense flashpoint will be when there's imminent danger. But if we just do things at the point when there's imminent danger, it's much, much harder to do. So if we can prepare ahead of time, if we can be aware ahead of time, then that self-protection makes self-defense much, much more likely. We'll talk a little bit about self-protection devices, but for more information on that, please see our breakout on our channel about self-protection devices. If the kind of short version is if you're looking at devices that need training, you need to train before you use them. So things like knives, guns, mace, we really don't recommend using them unless you train with them regularly. And so as we're doing things like a flashlight or a noisemaker, what was the name of that one? Do you remember?
Personal alarm.
Yeah, the personal alarm.
She was using a birdie.
A birdie. So look for one of those. They can be really helpful. So with those kind of general devices, the first thing we wanted to do is talk about regulating your own nervous system. And one of the best self-protection things you can do is just kind of getting in touch, being able to do a breathing exercise so that your conscious and your subconscious are working together, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic are working together. So if I could have Susan go ahead and lead us through circulating the chi in 5 exercises.
We spread out a little bit or go forward and back so we have room. You want to stand with your feet about shoulder width apart and your back straight and your head is suspended from the ceiling by a string, and you want to think of your center and sit a little bit. Then we're going to, hands will float up as you breathe in, extend as you breathe out, breathe in, and breathe out. The next one, we're going to come up, palms up, reach forward as you breathe out, rotate your hands, breathe in, and assess your body as you breathe out and go down and let go of any tension you have. Breathe in, out as you extend to the sides. Breathe in and breathe out. This next one, your eyes are going to follow your hands. in and out. In and relax. Sink. The last one is gathering. It's just going to have 2 breaths. So you're going to turn your palms out, breathe in again. Relax your shoulders, relax, and breathe out.
Nice. Thank you very much, Susan. Okay, so we've got our breathing, we're centered, we're focused. We want to practice a little bit some self-defense techniques we've learned in the other sessions. So one of the difficult things from here, good, is when your sympathetic nervous hits, when your fight or flight hits, your small motor skills disappear. So we want to practice large motor skills in order to have our self-defense. Over time, with our training, we'll get better and better at refining those and making them smaller. So we have a great group of people here. I'd like to start with our side-side circular motion, and then have each person show a little bit of something that's kind of based on that, but might be a little bit more refined version of that. So if I could start with, let's see, Laura, if you could do just some side-side motion, whole body through. Nice. Excellent. Rich, if you could show that same kind of motion, but with a little bit more refined technique. Don't hit them over there. Very nice. Sherry, if you'd like to show a technique you like to use. Thank you. Megan, if you'd like to show a technique you like to use. Nice. Matthew. Nice. Okay. Bill, if you would. Dad. Nice, thank you. Susan, Mom? Hello? Okay. Jen. Nice. So you can see there's a lot of variety in things that you can do with that side-side whole body motion. Start with engaging the whole body, and then as training progresses, you can use more and more refined techniques. Different ways might be to throw someone, restrain someone, block against something. If you watched our last session, also just for evading, where you don't even strike someone. So kind of cool. Matthew?
Yeah, so kind of this next section, we want to talk about the concept of like preparing and like what you do to prepare yourself when you're going out, and that first step that we talked about in the previous session with our self-protection. So I'll start first. One of the things that we can do that can really help you prepare for all of these situations is classes like this, right? Like we're here, we're actively thinking about things that help us in our day-to-day lives. It sets us up for kind of future success in life when it comes to dealing with kind of conflicts that may or may not arise. I'm going to pass it to Megan to give the next one.
All right, another thing that we can do is practice our breathing pretty regularly. We talked about breathing in previous classes, and just being able to center ourselves in the moment.
So one of the things that we do as a family is we share our location on our apps and on our phones. So both my wife, my daughter, and myself. Actually, my daughter has a mobile job, and so she's often traveling out. And so it's really helpful because we know where she is all the time, and so that's one thing that's helpful for us.
Very cool. Laura, is there anything you do to prepare?
Yes, especially if it's a new situation, maybe I'm going out to meet someone for the first time, I will arrange an out call. I will arrange either a friend of mine will call me to check in, hey, is everything good? Great, click. Or I will arrange, hey, I need to go and call my friend for just a moment.
Nice. Is there anything you guys would like to?
I think, especially if I'm alone going into a situation, I always have kind of a story, or I'm writing with like, oh, I'm meeting someone here, or I have an appointment or whatever, so that there's knowledge that there's somebody's expecting me, and there's going to be an issue if I suddenly disappear or don't show up.
I think about where I'm going to park or where the exits are at a place that I go to. I think about, especially with parking or something like that, it may be safe when I go in. Is it still going to be safe when I come out? Do I have someone with me that I can walk to my car to?
I try to think about ways to be more aware of my surroundings and be conscious of the people coming up behind me, people all around me, and be aware of everything that's going on.
So a quick story around awareness. There's a construct in Japanese called zanshin, which means awareness. I happened to be in Tokyo a few months ago, and I literally had 3 women, like they were looking at their phones, and they would literally walk into me. And so Tokyo is a really safe city, so probably no issues, especially where we were, but it was really, really clear they had absolutely no idea what's going on. So I think being aware of your situation and surroundings is probably really important.
Excellent, excellent. So you can pass that to Matthew for the next. So I just to move with a little bit of what Jen was saying, this idea of having a story, it doesn't have to be a lie, although it doesn't have to be the truth either, but you want to think about what information you're sharing with the other person. So if we do have a great group of people here that have had several situations, is there anything that you guys have kind of prepared? Like if someone asks you, is this where you live, or are you alone? Any examples that you guys have that you use? If someone asks you at night when you are getting your Uber Eats from the front porch and they're still there, and you say, are you here by yourself? What might you say? No.
I would say no, but I always point out that there's a lot of people living where I live, which is true, and I'm fortunate to have the martial arts center right next to us, so I'm always clear to point out that I'm not alone, that there's other people, that there's dogs. So I always have something that someone's waiting for me, that they'll be here in just a minute. Even if I have to go check on something, if someone's waiting at the door, I'll say, just a minute, I have to check with my husband, whether he's there or not. So it's clear that that's the case.
So I'm fortunate that I live in a high-rise building, and so similarly we have a lot of people around us, and so kind of the inverse of someone asking me, "Are you alone?" Something that we do as our homeowners association, we encourage one another to, if someone tailgates in the door behind you, you don't recognize them, maybe it's the Uber person, maybe it's not, maybe something just doesn't quite look right. Oh, are you new to the building? It's not aggressive, it's not rude, but it's letting that person know, I see you and something isn't quite clicking for me.
I like it. Thank you. So one of the things that was in common between all of those is this idea of community self-defense. So community self-protection, community self-defense. We're really lucky to have a community here. Thank you for being part of our community out there. Knowing that there's other people dealing with these situations, knowing there's other people to talk to about these situations, that's a huge step in having the confidence and the clarity to be able to deal with them. So thank you guys especially. A little bit about confidence and security, this kind of feeling of, are you confident? Are you insecure? For you guys, the difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance generally means you think you are better than someone else. It's this idea that you have that idea that you are better. You have to keep checking it because people change, you change. It's not a very secure place to be. Confidence is knowing yourself. And if you know yourself, then you have a different air about you. Your body, your mind seems to work differently. So we want to work on being confident, not arrogant. Same thing with insecure and humility. Humility means you know you could be better. And I think most of us know we could be better. If you couldn't, let me know. I would love to talk to you. It'd be fascinating. But insecurity means you think you're worse than someone else. If you define yourself by someone else, you have to keep checking. Keep checking, and that's an unstable place to be. Whereas humility, knowing that you yourself and knowing that you can be better, that's a really good place to be. So we want to portray a confident humility in dealing with others. Having said that, it doesn't always come across like we think it does. So when you're working with these things, take a partner, someone to work with, and kind of see how they think you're feeling. A little bit of this emotional intelligence, are you portraying what you think you're portraying, is really important. So I would highly recommend that. Next thing we're working on?
Actually, I just had one thought on that as well. Is that particularly when you're working with yourself and you're trying to build that confidence as well, at least in my experience when it comes to self-defense situations, a lot of people have a lot less confidence than they think. And so it can feel really awkward at first to be really confident when you're in those situations. And we've all kind of heard the expression, fake it till you make it. It is really important for that self-defense situation, right? We don't want to entice the person to take our space or our time, even though they're not entitled to it. Some people will think they are, and we don't want to give them additional tools to thinking that they might be entitled to your time. No one's entitled to your time. It's all yours. You can choose how you get to distribute that. And that's one thing that people don't always get the feeling for. And so if we can be a little more confident or act like we're more confident than we are, that can help particularly. Though there are some people where you don't necessarily need to be a little more confident. You can maybe add that modesty back in there, but most people are going to be a little underconfident than overconfident.
I like it. So I think this brings up a good point. Practice being confident, practice looking confident when you feel safe and are confident. And then check in with it so that you know that's what it feels like, that's what you sound like. And to go over that, a little bit about yells. So when we're dealing with people, we want to have, as part of our tools, a really clear, sharp yell. It shouldn't be aggressive, it shouldn't be submissive. We generally do it with a short, sharp vowel sound. So this one we won't be too close to the mic, so you don't have to have the mic for this one. We'll pass this one over here. Hi! Hi! Hey! Hi! Hey! Thank you, everybody. So yeah, having this short, sharp vowel sound so that we can deal with the situation, it distracts. It makes the person a little bit uncertain, and it helps to focus the person as where we want that focus to be.
So on our next topic as well, we have in that part of that prep step, we have practicing together, which we talked about, but also that clarity is kindness. We want to make sure that's important. We mention it every single time because it is. If you want somebody to have good, healthy communication with you, setting clear boundaries makes it way easier for them. It's not very kind to make people have to guess every time they talk to you. It's not kind for yourself to make it so you're uncomfortable, right? It is kinder for everyone to be very clear. So the key-up is a really good way of showing that, right? We can use lots of different words. It doesn't just have to be sounds, but thinking words like no is a really good indicator for that, right? No in itself is a complete sentence, right? You don't need any other explanation. If somebody's making you feel uncomfortable, telling them no, very clear and very concise, gets the message across. If they're not doing that, just like we talked in the previous PAX videos, right, there's those red flags, and like when people cross boundaries and how they don't deal with your communication well, you should try your best to kind of put that into a catalog, right? If people are regularly crossing your boundaries, that's a red flag. You should be concerned about that. So when we work on that clarity, we have things like, how do you ask for help? How do you communicate? How do you use those yells effectively? So we're going to go into this next part, which is how to ask for help and how do you communicate that. So does anyone here have one of the ways that they feel particularly works for them if they feel a little bit uneasy in a situation and you want somebody else to kind of jump in?
I really try to use what Matthew was just talking about. Clarity is kindness. So letting the person that's around you know, you're making me uncomfortable. Would you please back up a little bit? It not only lets that person know that you're uncomfortable, it lets the other people around you know that you're uncomfortable. So if you let the other people around you know, it alerts other people that there might be a situation and encourages other people to step in, which is part of what bystander training does. If you're the bystander and you hear that from someone, it also lets you know that they're inviting you to perhaps step in and make the situation more comfortable.
Another way is to have eye contact. People often feel uncomfortable with eye contact, but it can give a message that you're in trouble. Of course, the classic is call 911. I got a great story about my father falling down a cliff one time, and he was down there, and couldn't find him for about an hour, and then I finally found him. I said, Dad, you all right? And he says, yeah.
He was still hanging from a branch, so he hadn't fallen all the way down the cliff, but it was close.
And so I said, Dad, you want me to get a rope? You want me to come down there and get you? He says, no, Bill. He says, call 911. That's what they're for, Bill. And so he gave me trouble for years after that. He says, I asked him to call 911 and he just stood there.
So that's a good thing to keep in mind. When you are highly stressed, time doesn't seem to work the same way. So it's my guess that my grandfather's experience of time at that moment was extended. You did actually call 911 pretty quick.
We called 911, the
Yeah,
helicopters came. And
Yeah, no,
the
it was
guys
really good.
came.
It was on the
Yeah,
news.
It was a great rescue.
Yeah, it was really cool. The other thing we talked a little bit about is this idea of connecting with a trigger, something that brings you into the moment and clarity. So we did our breathing. We did our, you might use a word. Before we talked about using a word to bring yourself into a calm and focused state. So maybe tapping your heels, maybe you have an image that you associate with that. So when you feel that you're in danger, getting into that moment, getting into that clarity, and then being able to ask for help is really important. I think the other thing, like we were talking about, is practice. So, you know, if you only are willing to ask for help when you're hanging on the side of a cliff, it's going to be hard to figure out what to do. Practice accepting generosity, practice giving generosity, practice asking people for things in a way that is open and kind and clear. What's a way that you guys practice engaging with your community where you ask for help when you need it? We don't always do that well. I don't always do that well.
I'll start. When we're practicing at Ensa Center, right, that's one of my main communities. I want to get better at what I do, so I will ask for critiques. I will look at things. I'll say, oh, how does this feel to the person I'm working with? Because everybody has different ways that it feels. The techniques are going to work differently for different people. So I want to find what's the most efficient way I can get this for a wide variety of people, and how can I switch little switches to make it work a little bit better for people. And so that's an easy way, is I can't diagnose it all myself. You have to ask for help.
Are there ways people ask for help? Uh-oh.
We might need help. Asking for help.
That was easy, but good. Okay. So another way is like you're asked for help. You have situations every day, like when you're at a grocery store and someone asks to help you out with something. If they ask to bag, deal with them in a way that you think will engage and make them feel better about helping you. See how it affects the way they help you, how you respond. So if you practice that, then you'll know a little bit and you get kind of used to people helping and how to treat them well when they help. If you are thinking of them, if you're respectful of them, if you're generally grateful to them, even for little things, then when you need to ask someone for help in a bigger way, you're used to being able to do it well, and it's hard.
One of the things I've learned is that I don't often show emotions in certain scenarios. My daughter calls me a German Shepherd, and so if I'm in a situation, especially stressful, people don't know whether the German Shepherd is going to bite them or lick them. And so one of the things I've learned to do is express my emotions and engage people. And like in the grocery store, one of the things I'll do is I'll just ask how their day is going, and it completely disarms people and they start to engage. Also, one of the other principles here at courtesy, being kind to people and engaging them, obviously in martial arts, but also just on a day-to-day basis.
Really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess pretty much in the same vein, letting people help you is a way to develop community. And I often say, no, you know, I don't need it. And I think it would be probably, I feel much better when I allow people to help me, and I just wanted to add that to it.
On that same vein, I think that really does help build community. All of us have different skills and different times in our life that we can do some things and other people can do things better. So for me, getting older is hard because I can't physically do all the things that I used to do. And I know that my children and grandchildren are always eager to help me with things, and it makes them more likely to ask me for help with things that I can do that they can't, and or to teach them things that I can do that they want to learn. So it helps us to build a community around that.
Definitely.
No, I think that moves into kind of our next section really well, is asking for help, learning to ask for help, and being grateful and being successful in asking for help is also the next transition into how to effectively help others. When does someone need help? What does it look like? How can we work with that? So just on a kind of minor scale, and I know you guys do this for me all the time, what's a way that you on small things help people in the world around you? One is you guys are all here. Thank you so much. It is amazing. Just being in a place can be a huge amount of help. When we're talking about bystander training, when you're worried about someone, it looks like they're in some sort of danger, the fact of being there, letting the person know that you're there makes them more confident, more able to deal with the situation, and the possible threat or the possible assailant lets them know that there are other people around and make them feel a little bit less secure about hurting someone else. Jen?
I forgot what your previous question was, but I think it had something to do with how do you help people in the world, and it kind of goes in line with how to build community. One of the things that I really like to do is here at ENSO or in other communities, I really try to make a point to welcome new people, especially when they're brand new, and checking in with them, not just like in the beginning, but also at the end. How did you like class? How did you feel? I want people to feel welcome and included. That's a really important thing to me. So that's kind of a way to build my community and also to help other people, I guess.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jen.
Another way that you can show really good when to help and kind of diagnosing that is how you interact with somebody when they're in that situation. like even how you ask to help can make kind of a big difference. Particularly when I see something, I tend to ask, would it be all right if I helped, right? Or would it be all right if I joined this activity? Because then it doesn't put as much pressure on them to be like, I need help. That can be kind of difficult for people. So setting that up where if they really don't need help, they don't feel pressured one way or the other, but it does set it up so that they're being acknowledged, they're being part of a group, right? They're not alone in that situation, and that can really help people particularly, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I think we've had several good examples. Some things you might think of on a more abstract level, ways that you can use humor to de-escalate a situation, ways that you can divert from a certain situation, random interruption, something strange. We had help from Galina last time, and she would talk about her breakfast, and you're like, okay, but it disrupts the fixation, it disrupts the tension in the situation. If you can't feel like you can disrupt it completely, and a way you might disrupt it is filming from a distance. Again, you don't want to do it aggressively, but you can say, I'm filming over here, or just start filming from a distance. Filming up in someone's face aggressively is not so good, but with your phone, kind of keep track of what's going on so they realize that they're part of a larger community. People tend to be better behaved when they realize they're part of a larger community. Not always, but it can do that. I'd like to move into specific scenario practices. Let's start with something pretty basic, like a stranger being harassed. This could be at a gym, it could be on a street corner, it could be, what's another situation? Is there a place where you have seen someone being harassed, not necessarily in imminent physical danger, but you felt uncomfortable for their safety?
I had a circumstance in court where you wouldn't imagine that there would be aggravation, but a young man was being chastised by his mother, and his mother had taken her finger and was tapping him on the chest over and over and over. And I came up and I put my hand on the finger, and now my hand was doing this with the finger, and everybody started to laugh, and it defused the situation. So that's an example of what you were talking about.
Yeah. Other situations, it doesn't have to have been resolved, but places where you felt that there was kind of one person being harassed.
Yeah, I had a situation where I was out with a group of friends. This was last fall. We went to karaoke, and there was a man who, asked if he could take the chair. We had kind of an extra chair at our table, and we said yes. And then he sat down in it with us, as opposed to taking the chair, which is kind of what we expected him to do, like, go sit with your group. So that was super awkward and weird, and we were at karaoke, so people were like getting up and going and singing, and we were kind of going up to the bar or whatever, but there was one woman he kind of got fixated on, and it was super uncomfortable. We kept sort of checking in with her, making eye contact with her. Are you good? Is everything okay? And she, managed to sort of use some clear communication skills and get rid of him. But it was super awkward and just a weird, uncomfortable situation.
I like it. I don't like it, but I like, this is a good example. It works really well for what I want to do next. So let's go through a couple different ways that you might de-escalate that situation, and then we'll assume that it didn't actually de-escalate, and then how you might deal with it when it became an imminent threat. So here we are at a restaurant. Let's have a chair over here. Who would like to be an obnoxious, fixated person? Channel an assailant. Okay.
Yeah, you have to pick one.
Matthew, you look particularly.
Who's very
Yes. Jen, you're the supportive friend. Let's have you sitting down over here so you can help us through that situation. And then the person that they're being fixated on, who would like to be that person? Laura, you're over here in the gray chair. Okay, and so this is a way Jen is going to help us with this, how she would intervene in this situation. And Matthew, if we could go scene. Okay, I will be an obnoxious person.
Indicator.
So as we go through, I can be obnoxious. It's been known to happen. So as we come here, is this chair free?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how are you guys?
Good. I'm sorry, can we help you?
I'm doing good, thanks. This is great. How are you guys doing?
This is kind of a private conversation, so I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna need to ask you to maybe go someplace else.
Oh, okay, the chair isn't free?
Well, maybe you could turn your body so that we could continue our conversation.
Okay. So ideally, it would work out just that way, and the person might be there. It may be that you wanted the chair for someone else. You could change the story
That's true.
later.
I forgot.
There's a lot of different.
Forgot your story.
But I think that was clear. It was confident and it was focused. So now my friend Matthew is coming up over here, and we see that there's a little bit more of an imminent threat. So using some of the things we talked about, let's have Rich, if you could kind of guide them through this scene, how you might see it working out as we're starting to be more of a threat. So you guys are the players. You're directing over here.
So I think,
Is this chair free?
so I think Matthew comes and starts to act weird and get close and comfortable. And now I think Matthew is at a point where barriers have been crossed. So, yes, and so then either Jen would intervene or Laura would
So here, and because we're friends, and as it's a good way to diffuse things is through humor, going up and doing it back. In a situation, you wouldn't do that.
No.
So we want to make sure we're clear about that. So as Laura feels uncomfortable, what would be a way that we might deal with that?
I think clarity would be one way, probably to start like you did before, Jen, where the clarity that this is uncomfortable.
Okay. I'm gonna need you to back up.
Yeah, this is what you want, right?
At this point, I'm also going to be flagging down a bartender.
Good.
Or a
Connecting-
Asking for help.
asking for
Asking for
Yes.
connecting to the community. I like it.
Then I think there's a halfway on to go. But if the-
Yeah, that's so how ideally that worked well. A bartender came and said, "You guys need to leave."
Hi. Can I ask you guys to leave, actually?
Okay. People these days. It's awful. Yeah.
You can't even bring people in public.
Terrible.
Go back to
Okay. So now as this is happening, we have a bystander who could be the person who's the bartender. It could be another person in the restaurant. Jen is kind of a bystander there, although in this scenario, we got a little bit more right in the middle of everything that's going on. Some things to keep in mind, you might want to just leave. Maybe you guys need to go. However, if you're going to leave, don't go somewhere more isolated. Go somewhere where you still feel that there is community support. So going to a secondary location, especially if they're directing, we wouldn't want to do. But it might be fine at that point to change. Yes?
This is actually more of a question. So if we decided that we wanted to get up and leave, do you have recommendations around how do we get up and leave in a way that isn't inviting my good friend here to come and follow me right away?
That's where like making sure it is, if you're moving to a place that still has community, that still has safety. You might also, we had in our last session, Rich had a great story about you could buy them a drink and then leave. And so then they're there and they feel like they won. And you don't have to deal with the person anymore. It doesn't necessarily feel fair, but fair isn't really our goal here. Our goal is to get you safe, someplace where you feel you can assess everything and move on to the next step. I will mention, we didn't talk about earlier, safe is a relative kind of word, so we want away from an imminent threat. We realize that there are still earthquakes and fires and things like that. A safer space as you're going through. Is that kind of an answer? Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing, but it's escalated a little bit so that physical interaction. You feel that there is actual imminent danger. How would you move out of that situation? So in this one, I'll demonstrate one thing real quick. First, if I take Jen's spot, and Matthew is still there, Laura is still here, and let's say Rich is my spot right here. And so as we're here, and we're talking, yeah, you're kind of weird and you're fixated, and yeah, and this now as these two people are here, it's moved to the point where he's actually touching me, where I'm feeling uncomfortable and something's going wrong, and Matthew's actually touching Laura here. So from here we have our large motion skills. We probably have a table right here, but it would work even if we don't. So in this situation, we're going to turn from one to the other, and then use them to pull ourselves up and out. And so if you turn one way, turn the other, pull yourself up on Matthew, grab him and pull yourself up. And then in this situation, we're back around to a place where we can start to move away. Yeah. They won, we won.
You can pay the bill too.
Yeah. Okay. Is there another way that you guys could see exiting clearly? Let's say that doesn't work so well. Look.
So this actually happened to me, or something very similar when I was out at a nightclub recently, and it is sometimes as simple as if someone is in that kind of predatory space. Like, let's go back to
Yeah.
It is often the case that if someone is being this inappropriate, perhaps they're simply testing boundaries. And I found that they don't expect you to react. Like, they are expecting, especially if it's a man and a woman, they're expecting the woman to freeze. And there can be something as simple as, please don't do that. And that can be enough, because it interrupts the expected response.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't expect me to do that, he expected me to freeze.
Well, you can also see that you have a plan for beyond that.
Yes.
And that's where this training, I think, is really helpful. By having a plan for beyond that, you wouldn't necessarily need to use that.
Another thing that's also really important with this, like we're talking about, bystanders, but at this point, this is kind of that self-defense point that we talked about in the previous session. So the bystander is probably roped in at this point. And so we were talking about from the bystander perspective, which was Jen's role before, right? The hyperfixation was on her friend, but as soon as it became both of them, which can't happen in bystander situations, that's kind of when your self-defense point will probably happen. So if you're wondering at home watching, where's the bystander in this? Bystander is still there, but they kind of get absorbed into the active situation on occasion.
But I would say too, then in that situation, like, let's say there's two people here, they both are in the situation. Now there's two, perpetrators who are getting involved. There could be an additional bystander who comes over, hey, what's going on? Do you guys need help? Whatever, and interrupting that in a different way, right? So you could have additional bystanders become involved in the situation.
I'll also just add that as a bystander in a situation like that, I've been in a situation where I've witnessed that, and been in a situation where I've dealt with that. And I also find that often women been in a group and had individual women approach me when they were nervous, especially in situations where maybe there is alcohol involved.
Is there anything you do to be more approachable for that? How do you deal with that when you're approached for help?
You accept them immediately. You know each other. You're best friends. That's just kind of the underlying rule. Hi, been forever. Come hang out with us. We're gonna walk away as a group. Don't even see this guy. Not even gonna acknowledge it. So.
That is a great tactic. So I've talked to several people where things like that have happened, where if someone's following you, maybe you see someone who's sitting on the porch and all of a sudden they're your best friend, and it changes the dynamic of the situation significantly. Yeah.
As I was watching it, it kind of goes through the principles of what we talked about, both for the people involved, which is awareness. Something's not quite right here, both self-awareness, like you become animated, but also around you. Also for the bystander, like your radars are going off in terms. Then it was boundaries, like okay, the boundaries are getting close, and then you reinforce the boundaries, and then they clearly went over the boundary and actually into contact, where they literally physically touched you. The other thing I think you did really well, which Susan talked about, was clarity. Like you were super clear. No thank you, or whatever it is. And then, as you said, then it moves into a situation of either another bystander coming in and intervening and reinforcing the boundaries again, or worst case, well, obviously best case then is exiting the situation, and all of that before it gets into self-defense, which is the actual contact.
Excellent. So I think that's a really good point, and it's something I'd like to kind of build on. If you guys would come back this way, we'll kind of move these out of the way for a second. Is indicators. An indicator that something is going wrong, that someone might be in danger, that someone might be a threat. If I could go through and have you guys a little bit more so we can see everyone. What is one of the indicators that you guys look for that something is going wrong? Rich mentioned several really good ones. Is there any additional ones?
I don't know if Rich said this, but just this fixation on a person and fixation.
Looking for someone who doesn't quite fit with the ambiance of wherever you are. So if you're at a playground, someone who's approaching children they don't know, that is not playing the games or doing the things that everyone else is doing. So it's someone who doesn't quite fit into the scenario. It can be innocent, but it also is someone to look out for and pay attention that you might need to be aware of.
I think using your body is a little tricky, but putting your body in between the person that's being aggressive and the person that's being aggressed on. And again, engaging in comedy or, hi, how are you? I found that when I've done that, the person that is offending tries to get around me. And then you know you got a problem.
I would say paying attention to the language that they're using and being really clear with your language that you're not interested, you don't want this, they need to go away.
For me, as I mentioned before, first of all, it's awareness. Like, I'm always aware of who and what is around me in different situations. And I think the other big indicator for me is distance. If somebody is like in a pub or something and they're coming over to be friendly with somebody or closing the distance, the alarm bells go off, and that's a key indicator for me. And the other side of it, on the conflict side, if you can control the distance, you can control the fight. And so,
Yeah, I was also thinking a little bit more about personal space, especially if you've made a move to create more personal space and they've disregarded that and moved around it.
I'd say one that it's kind of similar towards the one that Susan was saying about like how they interact with everybody. Conversations, right? If you were conversing with somebody and what they're saying is not really related to what you're talking about, or their tone of voice doesn't match what they're saying, or things like that. Those are indicators to me that something might not be right. It might not even be directed at you. Like we've all had situations where somebody might have gotten angry at you and it was completely unrelated to anything you've done. That's still a kind of a red flag, but it's not like an immediate, oh no, I'm in a big danger, but something might be up with them, right? That might be a good time to look at it, particularly as a bystander yourself. They might be experiencing something that you may or may not want to see if you can help them with.
So if we take all of these different indicators that we've all talked about, and then we move it from external awareness to internal awareness, especially if you have done classes like this, especially if you have done self-defense training, your body understands things that your brain doesn't understand that you understand. That's a lot of words to say, listen to your lizard brain. If you feel like something is wrong, pay attention to yourself. Don't just backfist Matthew because the vibe is off. Or do, he's a good guy.
Even if you haven't done classes like this.
Yes, but there's definitely there is value in listening to your internal barometer and not just writing it off as, oh, I'm being too sensitive.
No, I think definitely trusting your instincts, trusting your emotions, using them as senses, not necessarily the determining factor, but they let you know information. And then these indicators, one by itself might not be enough to change what's going on. But if you see like 3 or 4, you really want to start to prepare or even to act. The next thing I'd like to go over is at a rally or a protest. If it's okay with you guys, we'll go a few minutes over so we can get to these last 2 real quick. If you're at a rally or a protest and you see people's emotions and stuff are already high, a lot of these indicators have already happened. People are too close together. You feel agitated. How do you identify, let's say we've identified that something is off. We have all these different indicators. How do you help someone to feel safe in a difficult situation like that? Any ideas?
I would say at rallies and protests in particular, when you're starting to feel unsafe, is trying to maneuver inside that crowd can be really important. The more in the center you are, the less control you're going to have over that space, which means as things kind of get more fervent, as like people are building up, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of feelings going on. There's also a lot of bodies, right? Sometimes if you're like really tightly packed, and if you're not a particularly big person, you may not have very much space at all. Even if you are somebody big, people get trampled in these kinds of things, right? So I try to find, what are some pockets that I can make, just like we talked about in the, I think it was the last session, where we did that moving through the crowd. That's a really helpful thing, and that kind of diagnoses like, oh, okay, things may be kind of bad in this situation. How can I maneuver in such a way that I can diffuse?
I think too, like having a plan for like an escape route, as it were. So especially like on things like if you're turning a big corner in the street, like, okay, can I maneuver so that I'm out here and I can slip out, get out for at least, if I want to be done, great. But if I just need a breather or I want to reposition myself at a maybe less dense portion of the protest, that's a great way to do it too. It's just kind of looking ahead, scouting, and seeing what options you have.
Can't say I've been to a lot of protests or rallies, but another real scenario, I was on a train in Japan, when we were in Japan, and it was absolutely cram-packed. And so I was with my wife, and what I did was I used my body as the protection. There was no way to get out of the train. I mean, you literally, if you've seen the movies, they kind of cram people in there, and there was no space. And so I used my body personally as a bystander, I guess, for my wife to make sure that she was protected.
A big problem in crowds is that if you're with somebody, you can lose them very quickly and you can't get back to them. So when Susan and I were at Mardi Gras, I would always hold on to her belt, just like that, whenever we walked anywhere. So there was no way that we could get separated.
Yeah, I would also add to that knowing the exit. Sometimes maybe it's a march and you're moving along, and I would say knowing the route in advance so that you know where you are. You don't find yourself in a neighborhood you don't know.
Really good. One thing that is kind of related is knowing how your car opens and closes. So if you found the exit, you're going to someplace, you're not necessarily comfortable, knowing if you unlock the doors, does it unlock all the doors? How quickly can you get in and out of a car? How can you lock it and get to a safe place? Planning ahead. Most likely, if you plan, it won't need to happen, but knowing that is really helpful. I have had family members who were at a protest where there was tear gas, and just knowing that something like that might happen, and then how, if our kids are at a protest and there's tear gas, they know how to get out of the situation and get to someplace safe is really important. Do keep a lookout. We're going to do a couple breakout things over the next week or two on how to move through crowds. You need to practice. And luckily there's lots of places with crowds to practice that are safe. So how do we move through crowds in a safe way? The next scenario that we might see is, let's say there's an official person, a security guard or a police officer, and they are dealing with someone, but it doesn't seem quite right. We like to think that type of thing would never happen, but it has, and so we know that it has. So what is kind of an appropriate way of dealing with that for the most potential for success? So my dad, Bill, worked with the Special Assault Unit in Seattle in particularly difficult cases. Is there anything that you know of the police, if you were trying to support police but also support good behavior with police, that you would say about how you treat them?
Oh, thank you. I think that I learned a lot by working with little children. Little children become very intimidated if you are larger than them, if you lean over them. But if you get down low, then they're less intimidated. I remember being in a situation like Jason mentioned with the police, and rather than walking up to the situation, I walked over and sat down. So the police were in the dominant position, but they knew I was there. I didn't have to say anything or whatever. But also I worked with the police, and they kind of knew, maybe, that I would support them if they got in trouble. And so giving them that message, two messages. One is that you're not gonna, cause a problem yourself, and you're not intimidating yourself, and that you if you need help, I can help you with this.
So some other things, if it has escalated to the point, where you think the person's in danger. As my dad mentioned, if you interfere, it can be illegal. It can cause more problem. But by interfere, we mean physically get in the way. You can interact and let people know that you're part of the community by filming, by letting people know. Try not to do it in an aggressive way. Again, can you make it feel like you're supporting while at the same time supporting the best behavior as you understand it? And getting other people involved too, so that it's not just you against either the person that they're dealing with or with the police. So how do you make it feel like it's a community where everyone is safer, not just the one person? And let them know you're in that situation. Also, like we talked about before, afterwards, record and review right away, because when you're dealing with an official type of situation, you're going to want to have it really, really clear for the future.
Sometimes you can have information that the police or security guard doesn't have, and in a non-aggressive way, you can let them know what the information is. This person has mental problems, this person is my grandmother, whatever. You can let them know if you have information without being judgmental of either party.
And even if you don't necessarily have information, you might ask a question. Is that person disabled? Is someone else in danger? Get people aware of the larger scenario, larger things going on. Also, it's okay to call 911, seek the aid of the police when dealing with the police. That's absolutely fine. Make them feel part of a larger community that they are familiar with. When people are part of a larger community, they are more likely to react the way that they want to, their best selves want to.
And when you're filming, right, if you can, film directly to your cloud. That way it's backed up, so if they do take your phone or break your phone, it's still safe somewhere. Another one is state laws change depending on whether or not you can just post things without permission, so please check your own state's law. Washington is a one-party state, so you can film if it's a official position like that, but do check your own personal state. Local laws are the ones that you need to know, so if you do that, you're probably not going to get in trouble, but they may force you to take it down, so do know that ahead of time as well. But for time's sake, just got one last thing before we do our wrap up here, which is when you are doing this filming or being a bystander, if you put yourself in a position where you do get hurt, it's hard to help somebody if you're letting yourself get hurt as a result. So do try and keep yourself at a safe distance, and do try your best to keep yourself from getting hurt to help people as well.
And even like Matthew said, where it is legal to post it, I would check with the person who was being attacked before I posted it. You want to check with them. You don't want them to feel another level of attack on their person. So I think that is an important thing as well. But like you said, get into the cloud as soon as possible so that you can use it responsibly in the future. Really good stuff.
And then kind of
Our conclusion, if you want to say a little bit, Matthew.
Again, thank everybody for joining our community, and of course, if you're interested in any of our other stuff other than just this session, we do have all our other sessions posted online. Please feel free to check those out. Our next section will be on I believe it's the LGBT plus community, and that'll be on March 8th, 15th, and 22nd at noon Pacific Standard Time. So if you are interested in any of those, please check those out. We'll have some people who were not teaching this session also teaching some of that stuff, so you get some new perspective. We've all done a lot of martial arts, so you'll get a lot of great information. They all kind of build upon each other. There's some parts that will be similar to kind of give you that base piece to build off of, but you'll always have it. If you are not part of the LGBT plus community, you are still, of course, welcome to do these. Everybody is welcome to be part of any of the PAX ones. It's just some of these issues might be a little more tailored towards those communities. So when you're there, do try and think about that. Continue to participate, of course. It's really nice if you're there. And so when we think about all of those, right, regardless of whatever community in, right, PAC's whole idea is we're all safer together. We want to make sure that we include that. So when you're there, just try and support other people, even if it's not specifically about you. Uplifting others helps make everybody safer.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone here. If we could say thank you to everyone out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good work, you guys.